Welcome everybody to another webinar Wednesdays here at Product Led. My name is Framley John. I'm super excited to have here Alexa. She is the co-founder and CEO at Focus, and she's going to be talking about 5 steps to layer on sales on top of PLG. Now, for most folks who have been tuning in with Product Led, you know that sales is actually a critical part, especially in the B2B space. So Alexa is just going to be really digging in and sharing exactly how to layer that in. If you have any questions, feel free to type it in the comments and Alexa can field that question. I can jump in, but we also have a Q&A at the end. So Alexa, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I will pass it off to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here and talk to all of you today. My name's Alexa, like Romley said. I am the CEO and co-founder of Focus. Focus is a product-led sales platform. So what I mean by that is we help sales teams at product-led companies identify, prioritize, and understand their self-serve users so they can take the right action to convert them to high-value customers. So today we're going to be talking about the 5 steps to layer sales on top of PLG. So if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. You can interrupt me. I'm happy to make this as interactive as possible. Or if anyone writes it in the chat, Romley, feel free to annoy me and pause me. Cool. So let's jump in. So our agenda today, we're going to talk about what is product-led sales, why you should care about product-led sales, and my 5 steps for executing on product-led sales. So I'm going to say some things that I think the entire product-led community knows, but just to tee up the whole conversation, that old school selling is dead. We're no longer in the traditional enterprise sales world where we're chasing cold leads. We're doing that hard selling, taking someone out for a steak dinner, trying to sell them on a value of a product before they even try it. We all know that's a very inefficient process and frankly, kind of annoying for both the salesperson, but also the end users. So enter the world of product-led sales. Focus's definition for product-led sales is that it's an end user focused sales model that leverages self-serve users as the primary funnel for sales teams. So when you have this PLG motion and you have tons of users already signed up onto your product, engaging on your product, loving your product, that is an incredible funnel for your sales teams to use to go for their go-to-market strategy. Instead of trying to cold outreach to folks through enterprise sales of saying, you know, you've never heard of this product, but why don't you try it out? You're able to convert way more users if you're able to identify those that are already on your product and continue to add more value to them over time. So a quick side-by-side on why we're in this new world of product-led sales. To the left is the old world of enterprise sales where reps are flying blind, they're trying to hard sell and aggressively sell on the value, and they're adding friction in the process to users that don't want to talk to a sales rep. They start the process with, should sales engage? What's the best message I should reach out with? And they're wasting a lot of time chasing the wrong accounts. So this increases CAC and decreases ARR. But in this new world of product-led sales, like I said, we have this huge funnel of self-serve users. So you have full visibility into how those users behave and product usage metrics. So you have a better understanding who to reach out to, when to engage, how to reach out to them. So you're able to pick out the best opportunities easily from that existing self-serve pipeline. So if you don't believe me that sales and PLG is important, I'll show you some data because I know the PLG world loves some data. We conducted a survey with over 200 PLG companies. And we asked what best describes your go-to-market motion. Over half, 54% said that they have PLG and a sales team. So even though there's sometimes this myth that sales doesn't exist in PLG, over half of the companies we surveyed had a sales team. 30% said they're sales-led but moving to PLG. 12% said they're PLG, they don't have a sales team yet, they might not be ready for it, but they have plans to add one. And only 2.6% said they don't have plans for a sales team. So hopefully I've convinced you enough so far that sales and PLG is absolutely critical to your motion. So before jumping into the 5 steps, any questions? Just Just gonna scroll through. Okay, cool. I'll keep going then. So we're going to talk through the 5 steps to layer sales on top of your product-led sales, on top of your PLG motion. And these 5 steps are: first, you want to get your self-serve flywheel up and running. Second, you want to get cross-functional buy-in. Third, you'll want to set up and operationalize your PQLs, or product qualified leads. Fourth, you'll want to hire the PLS team, or what we call the PLS Squad. And fifth, you want to put your plan in action. So we'll start with the self-serve flywheel. So it's really important that you do not try to layer a sales team on top of your PLG motion until you have this healthy self-serve flywheel up and running. And the reason is you don't want to start selling before your PLG customers are ready, because then that just gets to the old days of enterprise sales. So how do you know that you have this healthy self-serve flywheel up and running? A lot of folks will say, it's around 10 million ARR, or they'll try to quantify it. I like thinking about it more in qualitative terms. And there's 2 main things that I see happen often that says our company is ready to add a sales team. So the first thing is your company will start to get salesy requests more frequently. So they'll start to see hand raisers asking more complex questions than just, hey, how do I reset my password? It might be a more complex question like, I want to onboard 50 people in my company. Can you help me do that? Second, customer-facing teams will start acting like sales. So you'll see your customer support folks, success, maybe even product managers, marketers start to act like salespeople. And that's the time when it becomes 80% of their job that it's probably time to hire a salesperson. And the goal of this, when adding a salesperson on top of this self-serve flywheel, is you want to make it really easy for those users to get started and experience value without talking to a human. But if they want to talk to a human, that a human is very accessible and is there to remove friction. So the next step is getting cross-functional buy-in. So you've gotten to the point where, okay, we're a PLG company. We decided it's time to add our sales team. This is not just okay, let's hire a few sales reps and call it a day. This is really a cross-functional process and a strategic decision. And you need to set expectations on things like strategy, outcomes, roadmap, metrics. So the first thing we recommend doing is getting all of the relevant folks in a room that will be part of this product-led sales journey. This is not just the sales rep. It's usually someone from growth or product or marketing, anyone that is thinking through how do we take our self-serve users and use that to increase deal size and sell enterprise-wide. And so what we recommend doing is creating a 1-page strategy doc or business case. So I'll walk you through an example of what that can look like. So we, through the POCUS product-led sales community, have talked to tons of different PLG companies that have layered on a sales team and asked them, how did you do that? And what was the process? One company that we were really impressed with is Cypress, and this is their 1-pager document. So thank you, Cypress, for letting us steal some of your content to help inform the product-led community. So what you do here is we want to think about adding on sales with these sections on the left. So let's skip the hypothesis for now. We're going to jump into the objective. You're going to want to write down and think about, why are we doing product-led sales? How will this help overall company goals, OKRs, and KPIs? And then we're going to jump into the strategy. How will we actually implement this? Who needs to be on the initial team? Like I said, this is initial team on sales, but you'll also need relevant folks from marketing, support, product to support this initiative. And what other resources are required? What does the tech stack look like? What do you need from that? And then the roadmap. Let's look at a 30, 60, and 90-day plan and make sure we have key milestones that are important. And then metrics. How will we measure that this is successful? What will be the primary metrics as well as the secondary? And then cost. Think about what resources and tools are required to get this done. And then we can go back to this overall hypothesis and say, okay, now that we know what our objective, strategy, and everything is for implementing this team, let's write out our hypothesis that is specific to our company. So this could be things like, we want to increase ARR decrease CAC, decrease sales cycle, whatever that is, whatever the reason is that you are adding on a sales team, you'll want to make sure to be testing that. And so I was looking at the chat, making sure there's no questions. Thanks, Andy. And so once you have this all written out, you can actually start to implement. And one thing I want to flag that's really, really important, this is not just, again, a one-time decision. You hire a sales team and everything's okay. This is a big cultural shift, and this requires consistent reinforcement and education and retraining. So there's going to be new things such as org structure and compensation and process and playbooks that you'll have to do a lot of training across your organization. So every single person I've talked to that has implemented product-led sales at their organization, regardless if they're going from sales-led to product-led or starting with that PLG motion and layering sales on top, there's a mindset shift. If you're starting with PLG and adding sales on top, there might be this mindset shift of going from, we don't believe in sales, we don't need sales, to, okay, now we need sales. Or if you're going from sales-led to product-led, you might have a lot of traditional enterprise sellers that need to be retrained on only going after leads that have already used your product. So making sure that you have consistent education and training for your organization is extremely important, and being very thoughtful about your org structure, compensation process, and playbooks. Now we're going to dive into setting up PQLs. So I'm sure you've all heard what a PQL is, a product qualified lead. We're going to get into POCUS's framework for how to define and operationalize PQLs. So there's 3 steps. First, you need to get your tech stack in place. Second, you can actually define these PQLs. And third, how to actually operationalize and implement in your organization. So first, leveling up your PLG tech stack. So this is what POCUS has defined as the modern tech stack for PLG companies. I won't dive into all of this right now, but maybe Sandy, you can put in the chat a link to this blog post to actually go into some of the tools we think are really important to get your product-led sales motion up and running. So some that I'll flag are having your data warehouse in place. Most companies we see have Snowflake, Redshift, BigQuery, as well as your CRM, typically Salesforce and HubSpot. We also see a lot of folks have CDPs, as well as data enrichment tools like Clearbit, and then a product-led sales platform like POCUS. But feel free to dig into all of this on our blog post. Once you have this stack put in place, now it's actually time to define what your product qualified leads are. I'll flag again, this is not a set it and forget it thing. This is an iterative process to figure out what are these product qualified leads, what are the best users on your product that should inform the sales team of who they should be running after. I'll also flag that smaller companies tend to have 2 or 3 PQLs, whereas we've seen bigger companies, the public PLG companies, might have upwards of 30 PQLs. So this is something that's constantly growing, iterating, changing as your organization matures. So for PQLs, we think about this in 3 different buckets: customer fit, product usage, and buying intent. So for customer fit, we want to analyze how closely does this account match your ICP, or ideal customer profile. And these are things like industry, geography, company size, role. Then we want to look at product usage at the user and account level. So things like, what are the total daily active number of users? What's the frequency at which they're using your product? How recent have they been on your product? How much time do they spend on your product? What are the invites sent? What is the free to paid conversion? These are just some examples where you can analyze the product usage. And then finally, buying intent. Has there been any signals that show that an account or user is ready to spend more? So things like, did they visit your pricing page? Have a lot more people signed up for your product? Did they click talk to sales? And so we can run through an example of what Slack's example might look like for their PQLs. So for example, for customer fit, maybe they're going after, for one of their PQLs, the tech industry in the US with company size of 15 to 1,500 employees, and they want to target head of ops. For product usage, lots of things listed here, but maybe they want to understand when over 2,000 messages have been sent and over 100 channels created. Buying intent, maybe the VP hit talk to sales on your website. And what you'll want to do is use all of this data and program it into your process to be able to surface this information to your sales teams so they can reach out to the right users at the right time, which we'll get into next. But this part right here is all about understanding the metrics that are important to drive your business forward. And something we also like doing at POCUS is mapping this out on a chart of customer fit versus product usage, so you know what action to take from your PQLs. So you'll see here we have 4 different categories. So the easy one we'll start with is if you have a really good customer fit with great product usage, this is an indicator that this is a sales-ready PQL. Your sales team should be running after this account because it should be a really easy win. Then up here, you might see that there's a great customer fit, but they haven't been that engaged on your product. So your sales assist team, which we'll get into later, or one of your, some folks call it product specialists, onboarding specialists, advocates, there's a team that should be nurturing this account, understanding how they can add more value, how the users can be getting value out of the product. What's going on? What is the friction? What's the blockers? Why haven't they been using your product? And then you might have these scenarios where there's really high product usage, but not that good of a customer fit. So this might be a new use case for your business. You should explore when you have time, what's going on here? Is this something we should be dabbling in further? Then there's the low customer fit, low product usage. These are the folks, do not touch them. Send them back into your self-serve funnel until maybe they one day become a customer fit, one day have higher product usage, but it is not worth your expensive sales team's time to be running after these deals. Again, I'll iterate. It's really important to keep these PQL definitions in simple. Just start straightforward, and then you can continue to test and iterate over time. Now that you have these PQLs defined, it's important to actually operationalize them. And what I mean by that is getting them in the hands of sales teams so they can action them. So first step is identifying and prioritizing. So once you've defined what these PQLs are, let's prioritize accounts or users that have hit these PQLs so sales teams know exactly who they should be going after and when. You'll want to assign these PQLs. So route the PQLs to the right salesperson. So whether this is a round robin or you're assigning PQLs based on things like industry or geography, you will want to route specific PQLs to a specific owner so they can go after that account or user. Finally, you'll want to deliver insights to the sales teams about these PQLs so they can take the right action. What I mean by that is you won't just want to surface something like, oh, this account is great. You want to say this account is great because they have reached a 2,000 channel mark in their PQLs, as well as a great ICP. So the sales team knows exactly what to be saying, who to be reaching out to, what the message should be. And I'll say if you are, some folks build this internally, if you're looking for a third party to help you with this, this is where POCUS comes in, to help you actually operationalize and put your PQLs in action. All right, any questions? I'll check out the Slack channel. Looks like we're good for now, but before I go to hiring the PLS squad, anything I should be checking out? Okay, we have a quiet bunch today, so I'll just keep going to hiring the PLS squad. So as you might know, sales teams at PLG companies look really different than the sales teams at traditional enterprise companies. They're more data-driven, they're more customer-centric, and they're more focused on adding value, genuine value to those end users. So what does a sales team look like? Well, mature organizations tend to have these 3 different categories of sales teams: sales assist, SDRs or BDRs, and account executives. So I'm sure you all have heard of SDRs and AEs. SDRs are focused on potentially inbound and outbound, trying to qualify leads, get the right leads in the hands of account executives. Then account executives are really focused on discovery and ultimately closing those deals. This new function of sales assist we'll get into on the next slide. But what I want to comment on is These 3 roles are really important for mature organizations. So if you are a smaller company, don't be so nervous about getting all of these roles put in place. What we recommend is starting out a sales team based on your goals. So if you're saying, we just had tons of self-serve users, we need help mining these to inform which we should go after and to identifying the PQLs, you might need a sales assist person. Or if you're saying, we have all these sales assist users, we've been engaging with them for a while, we just need help closing and building those relationships, you might need to hire an AE. But at the very early days, if you're looking to hire your first sales rep, we really recommend hiring a generalist, someone who can do a little bit of everything. And that generalist, I'll go back for a second, should be data driven, should be empathize a ton with their customers and be very user centric, and should be more focused on adding value to their customers rather than cranking through deals. And so this sales assist team, if you haven't heard of sales assist, it's a newer, not so much newer, but newer in newer PLG orgs. This has existed in bigger PLG organizations like Dropbox and Slack and Atlassian, but newer PLG companies are starting to implement this sales assist function, otherwise known as product specialists, onboarding specialists, advocates, customer experience. And these folks have 3 main goals. Their first goal is to support the customers. So what that means is, how do we educate them and enable the users along their journey to make sure that they're getting value out of the product? Even if they're not ready to talk to sales, the sales assist team should be there to remove friction, make sure that they're getting value out of the product so that they don't churn and so that they are getting maximum value for themselves and their teams. Second is sales support. So this means, how do we mine all of these users and find those PQLs and surface them to the sales team? So the sales reps are always going after the most high value deals. And then finally, and objectively, the most important is this feedback loop. Since the sales assist team isn't so focused on closing deals, they're very focused on, how do we learn everything about the customer so that we can improve and iterate and take feedback so that we can improve maybe our pricing model or our product or our marketing so that future customers can convert and get value more easily. And so what sales assist teams do is they really learn everything they can about their customers and then funnel that information back to the product team, back to marketing, back to growth, back to sales to constantly improve. So finally, you're going to put your plan in action. So you'll want to create, once this is all done, you can create the internal playbook. Don't do that ahead of time because things will just change too much. But once this is all in place, you'll want to create the playbook so you'll have clear handoffs between self-serve and sales. We've heard a lot of companies running into the product problem where self-serve and sales are going after the same deals. You'll want to have really fine specific divides between what is a self-serve deal and what's a sales deal. And this comes back to customer segmentation. It comes back to compensation and incentives. And then you'll want to have really clear revenue expectations split, going back to that first point. You want to have ways to disseminate information to the broader team to continue when you are educating and when you are refining processes. It shouldn't just be in a black box. You should get that to the whole company. And you'll want to hold kickoffs and education sessions. So we've heard companies doing this as often as once a month and tracking on how your PLS motion is going and making improvements and making sure everyone is on the same page and you're educating and training. So I know this might have been a lot, especially if you're newer to the world of product-led sales. If I had to simplify this into 3 key takeaways, I'd say, do not overcomplicate this process. So your goal should be, how do we get the best fit users into the hands of sales teams when they are ready? So think about this as your goal, and then use all of this other data and now you have the powers at your fingertips to support that goal. You should always be shipping and testing and iterating. So that, again, this is not a set it and forget it motion. None of this is. The PQLs, the building your team. You need to try things, experiment, and test. And then finally, be very clear with expectations. Where we see this go wrong is when leadership has a different perspective on what sales teams at PLG companies should look like, than the sales reps themselves. So make sure that everyone is aligned with this plan. And so I'll put a quick plug. If you are interested in workshopping PQLs using the framework we just went through, we're actually going to do a webinar and a live workshop on PQLs on December 8th. It's on Zoom. Here's the link to join, and we'll be excited to see you there. And finally, before opening it up to questions, always happy to chat with anyone who wants to learn more about adding sales to your PLG motion. You can chat with me on email, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. And now I'm happy to answer whatever questions you all may have.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Alexa. I mean, if people have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, ask Alexa directly. To kick it off, I do have, one of the questions I get all the time, and thank you for sharing like this process of like how to add on product-led sales. Have you seen any like big mistakes? I know you talked about like overcomplicating. Is that like a big mistake you see when people are trying to add product-led sales, or are there other common mistakes that people should avoid when they're thinking about adding on sales to the product-led growth motion?
Yeah, it's a great question. The biggest mistake I see is, okay, we're ready to hire a sales team, and then you hire a traditional enterprise sales rep and do a traditional enterprise sales process rather than sticking to that product-led sales motion. And what happens is you create two very different, disjointed, separate processes that are not connected, which truly can kill the PLG section of your business. And then you'll be just spending too much time and expensive sales reps' times running after deals, which is inefficient. Those deals might not even be qualified. They might not know what your product is. So it's inefficient. It's costly. You're not going to accelerate ARR. You would have been better off just sticking with your self-serve motion. So how to avoid this mistake is when you hire sales reps, they might be traditional enterprise sales reps. You want to make sure that they are not going after any cold deals, any cold leads. They should not just be calling up people, sending cold emails saying, hey, have you heard of my product? You should really start out by mining those PQLs, mining your self-serve user base to inform who to be reaching out to, and being very customer centric and personalized and customized with your outreach.
Great response. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Another question I had, once again, if people have questions, feel free to share. Oh, there is a question from Michael. Do you just want to ask it directly? Or, I mean, the question is, what job would you use to attract such a person? That's a great question. Like, well,
yeah, we're trying to hire somebody like that. And we know that it's going to be a salesperson, but, you know, for PLG, and we want to make that clear, but we want to basically set the expectations with this potential candidate so that they know it's somewhat similar to a sales job, but then again, there are differences. So I just wondered, what would you call such a person? What's the job title that would resonate with a candidate? That would be great.
It's a great question, Michaela. And the answer is, unfortunately, it depends. I've seen this role be called sales assist, product specialist, customer engagement, customer experience, customer advocate, even just called sales itself. So what I would do is lay out everything that you think is an important role for this, or important characteristics for this person. In my head, it'd be things like they're a little bit of a generalist. They might have experience in sales or customer success. They have that, customer facing experience, but also deeply understand a product. And they can be flexible and they can iterate over time. And then I would craft a JD around that. And regardless of what you're naming that role, I would be targeting folks that you think can fit that kind of JD. And so what I mean by that is, for example, at Confluent, which is more of a dev tool, more technical piece, they were looking at very technical SDRs to fill this role. So they wanted to find someone who even came from coding experience and could deeply understand the technical parts of a product, and then they could teach them the customer facing. But then there's others, for example, at maybe Airtable, which is more of a productivity tool, less technical, where they would hire from more experienced salespeople and then train them more on how to be really knowledgeable on the product and how to add value rather than the traditional sales model. So, I mean, Michaela, what type of business are you? What is Preservica?
Yeah, we're a preservation company. We preserve, as the name says, we preserve files, assets that companies or institutions have in the long term. So over long periods of time to ensure that they are usable in 150 years. So think of obsolete file formats such as WordPerfect, making sure, in 150 years, I can still read that document as a WordPerfect file.
Amazing. And what is your main goal for hiring the salesperson? Is it to mine PQLs and understand and surface those, or is it to go run after these deals and make sure they're paying for the product rather than just getting it for free?
No, I did give an internal presentation based on Romley's piece on sales assisted onboarding, and said that was really important to have somebody who essentially helps the users through the first aha moments and getting them to adoption and beyond a consultative sales approach. So basically adding value, because nobody has the time to sit there, maybe contact a customer who's stuck and just do a demo with them. So we really need somebody who's rather proactive. Somebody who helps us refine our idea of PQLs, and then basically qualifies them, as you've shown. These are the PQLs that can become SQLs, and this is what I want to do. This is the messages that I'm going to send out, when they've reached that stage, and just have a strategy, if that makes sense, to how to be helpful but not annoying.
Yeah, exactly. No, it sounds like you're definitely on the exact right track. What I've heard resonate most is a customer advocate, because that resonates for both. Sales assist can have kind of some people hate it, some people love the term, but customer advocate, really for customers, feels like you're helping them. And then for the people that you want to hire, it sounds like maybe a little sexier than a sales assist role. But really, that's what I've heard resonate the most. I think I've seen sales assist the most, though, in terms of quantity. Sandy, sorry to keep bothering you, but maybe we can post our article on sales assist, because we have some example JDs there that would help you.
Super. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask a sample JD, but it seems like Sandy's gonna post that up as well, like some kind of template.
Yeah.
In terms of I guess so. I guess I want to follow that thought process, like the JD's up. What kind of interview questions would you ask that kind of role, to just weed out something that would be more fit for product-led sales? And what are other things you would look for in the qualification process of hiring somebody who would be good fit for that?
Yeah. So my favorite part, which Michaela just hinted at, is the fact that they need to be consultative. So they need to be educating and guiding rather than aggressively selling. So my favorite thing to do in interviews is actually have kind of a mock case study of what a real life example is. So if you can say, this is our product, a user has been on the product, they invited a bunch of their coworkers, they hit this threshold, what do you do? And the wrong answer to me is if an interviewee says, we need to get them from $1,000 a month to 10 million ARR, and we need to just aggressively sell the product and just figure out who the stakeholders are and just go, go, go. The right answer to me is, let's send really personalized nudges. Hey, how's it going? Do you need help? I saw you were doing XYZ in the product. Congrats for meeting this threshold. Do you want to try this? No need to talk to me. Continue to self-serve. Or if you want to talk to me, here's my Calendly. I'm always available. And so to summarize that, I'd be looking for someone who can educate and be kind of guide users versus the aggressive quote unquote sales rep. How I would test that is through real life examples of working through, for your specific company, this is what we see. Tell me how you would do it.
That might make sense. And then are there I guess the opposite to that is, are there red flags that you would watch out for, like being too aggressive? Like, what are some red flags you've seen that might not be a good fit for that product-led sales motion?
Yeah, so product-led sales, again, fairly new in some sense. And so most of the world is more familiar with enterprise sales of the, okay, here's my target account list. I'm going to run after them, do some ABM. I'm going to cold call a bunch of people, etc. I think the biggest concern to me is if they're not willing to be kind of re-educated into this new motion, and they're not willing, as Sandy said, to experiment and try new things. So most sales reps have this kind of, okay, we're just going to do our way of selling. We know it works if they're coming from traditional enterprise, because it is a little bit of a cookie cutter process. It's been around for so long. In this PLS world, it's a mindset shift. It's a cultural shift of, okay, I need to retrain my brain into thinking I'm no longer trying to go after the biggest deals. I'm no longer cold calling a million people. I'm only focused on this very targeted specific list. And I'm going to be very customized with my outreach, and I'm helping, not selling. And through that process, A, being able to retrain your brain and willing to learn, and then B, experimenting with new processes. So not everything's going to work. Like we just said, nothing in the process of PLS or PQLs is, a one size fits all solution. Every company is going to have to continue to experiment. And I actually really liked what Michaela said. She wants the sales assist team to be thinking through what those PQLs are, because they're on the front line. They're going to be trying to figure out not just, okay, I'm really only focused on sales. I'm also focused on bettering the company and figuring out what better PQLs are and how to implement that across my organization. So you need someone who's going to get in there, willing to experiment, willing to learn, willing to, iterate with the company as they move forward, rather than the red flag would be someone saying, I'm going to take my cookie cutter process from my last company and implement it here.
Makes a ton of sense. Thanks for sharing that as well. And now I've been asked before, and it always stumped me around, maybe because I'm not a salesperson, around compensation. Like, how would you compensate now in this world where would it be the same? Yeah, can you talk a little bit about how would you compensate? Would it be the same kind of structure in the PLS world versus like the enterprise world, or is there like now more incentive to like expansion stuff, like getting stuff there?
It's a really good question. And I've talked to so many people who the answer is people are still figuring it out, but there's one example I really like. So when you think about compensation, it all comes down to incentives, right? How do you incentivize salespeople to only run after the right deals and the best deals? And so what can happen in a PLG world is sales reps know there's a bunch of low-hanging fruit, right? Because there's a bunch of smaller deals that some users are on the product. We can get them from going from 100K a month to 500K a month. And, I'll be compensated on that, and boom, I'll hit my quota. But that's not good for the business, right? The business, you want to be targeting the bigger deals. Otherwise, you could leave that in self-serve. They could have probably from 100K to 500K done that through the self-serve process. So all comes down to aligning the sales reps incentives with the business incentives. One model I really liked was actually Confluence, where they really focused on how do we separate the self-serve business from the sales business. So sales are only running after deals that have potential to be a big customer, and let the self-serve. Stop, don't get in their way. And how they did this is they took a number of, say it was 5,000 in ARR, where they said, sales reps will only be compensated on this deal if it reaches over $5,000 in ARR. And so what that does is sales reps have to use their judgment to say, do I think this deal will get above 5K? Okay, I should run after it. And will it get after 5K now or in 3 years? So what happens is, something like if Apple signs up for your product, that probably has potential to be a multi-million dollar deal in a couple of years. So it's worth it for a sales rep to run after it, even if they won't make the 5K quota this quarter. But if it's a smaller company, hasn't been that engaged, sales reps shouldn't waste their time. Let it stick to the self-serve funnel. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. That was like a more concrete example I've heard so far. So thank you for actually sharing it. And like, hey, here's a good example. If they hit 5,000 ARR, makes a ton of sense there. I want to talk about the other side here. A lot of the companies that we work with at a product led, they some of them already have like a sales team in a traditional sales led motion. And the idea of product led growth and product led sales scares the traditional sales team. It's like, oh my goodness, what's gonna happen there? Do you have any advice for those companies who are the sales teams? The sales is like a real kind of scared. They're like, oh, are we gonna lose our will we get our lunch eaten, and like will we make less? Like, what are some suggestions you have for those kind of companies that are switching from a sales led to a product led, and they already have a sales team in place?
Yeah, it's funny. I love this question. So no, enterprise sales reps, you're not getting fired. It's still very important. My reaction to that is, so do you want superpowers or do you not? So these enterprise sales reps are moving from a place of no data to data. We're literally serving up on a platter the best leads for them with PQLs in a product-led motion compared to wasting time running after cold deals. So enterprise sales, they're not going away. It's nothing scary. It's literally just a motion where you can have more data and be more valuable to your customers.
That makes sense. Like they have more data, they can qualify. It's a deeper level of qualification. You share that in that matrix with the product engagement and then the customer fit. And like, yeah, they can really, it's more ways to really find the right kind of fit for waste less time on leads.
And I've heard, it's so funny, I've heard some people be like, they're enterprise sales reps at a B2B company saying, I have figured out the secret. The secret is PQLs. And I am going to only reach out to these leads, these users that have already been on the product. And it's just like a secret superpower. It's nothing more than that. I mean, it does take retraining, like I said, to be focusing your efforts there and helping, not aggressively selling. But those are all good things. Like it's nothing to be scared of. Sellers aren't going away. If anything, we're pushing the opposite. We're saying sales is so important for PLG.
That makes a ton of sense.
I have a question to piggyback off that, actually.
Jump right in.
So yeah, my company was a sales-led company that's moving to PLS. And so we're currently building out our tech stack so that we can equip our reps with those PQLs, but we don't really have them quite yet. In addition to that, our UA team, to try to like hack the front end of the funnel, has eliminated a lot of the fields to sign up for a trial. So now we're kind of in a situation where a product-led sales company with not a whole lot of data from our product totally yet, and we're working on it. And then not a lot of information on who our users are totally. What kind of sales motions would you recommend for like the reps in that case, or just from a motivation perspective, just to keep them hanging on until we develop those PQLs, I guess?
So what, I'm assuming you have some sort of data available.
Yeah, we have some, yeah. It's just not enough, I think, right? So we have.
I would push on that. I think that you actually want to start simple and you want to start with a few data points. So it's okay if you don't, I mean, I'd ask like, do you have a data warehouse set up? Are you collecting information around even the users, as simple as who's signing up for your product, who's sharing your product, what features are they using?
Yeah, we definitely, so not ton of features, but at least our first aha moment, we have all those PQLs like figured out, which is great. But now we're kind of in the situation, I know you mentioned like to establish your PQLs, making sure the customer fits there first. And now that we have like so all we require for a trial is like name, email, password, right? So like, that's all we require. So we don't know org name, anything. So like trying to think about it from that perspective is that, and we have seen way more users in our product as a result, but
do you have a data enrichment tool yet?
No. So that's part of the tech stack we're building out, right? Like I think is like some of that stuff that our team isn't totally equipped with. But
yeah. So what I'd recommend for you is, and I'm happy to chat about this offline, Kyle, is I don't know, are you using a CRM?
Yes.
Cool. So what I would recommend is first step, get your data enriched so you can get that information around customer fit, industry, geography, company size. We recommend enriching on the data warehouse data, but you can also do it on CRM. From there, you don't need to get too complicated. Write out, and we can do this workshop with you, write out the 3 bubbles I saw. You can do a Miro dashboard, a fig jam of customer fit, product usage, buying intent, and just do a brainstorm session of all the things that you think are important for your business. And so you'll come out with hopefully 20 to 50 stickies saying, these are the things that are important from a product usage, a customer fit, and a buying intent perspective. And then start testing. Don't get overly complicated on that we need to have the exact right answer, because you're not going to know it the first 3 times. Start testing, let's try reaching out to every user that has this customer profile as well as done this thing in the product. Did that increase ARR? Did that decrease the sales cycle time? And continuously iterate that motion.
Yeah, I guess until we get that like data enrichment tool in place, I guess I'm wondering about like current sales motions. Like, would you recommend like just having the SDRs? They're doing all the emails, reaching out, qualifying, because you don't have a lot of that customer fit data yet. Like, I guess sales motions around for the sales team, I guess, in the meantime,
Yeah, I mean, I would start by looking at like reaching out to users that have hit a certain metric. But you might be at the point where you don't have enough data on them. So it is important to get the data up and running. But I would be pointing your SDRs to the lead, to the PQLs, or you don't even have to call them PQLs yet if you're early enough. I would point them towards the users that are already on your product. And instead of using it as we have to have the perfect sales motion, I would use it as a learning experience. So when sales reps or SDRs or sales assists, whatever you want, get on the phone with those users already on the product, think about it more as how can I help and what can I learn from you to improve the sales motion in the future once I do have data. So things like, okay, you'll want to know what industry are you, what geography, what's your company size, what's your role, what are the stakeholders in your business? So then when you do get data later on, you're able to inform with anecdotal evidence, what a good PQL is. I know that seems like an unsatisfactory answer, but right now it seems like you're more in the learning stage and iterating and feedback loop of trying to understand what's good before actually implementing it.
Yeah, totally. And that's good for sure. I'm just trying to, struggle with a transitioning team. And so, keeping them motivated and figuring out,
And I think, and that gets into a whole other thing of the shift in mindset to keep them motivated. Like the motivation for your sales team in PLS should be, we helped a user. It should not be, we closed a massive deal. But if you can shift that mindset, even if it's something small, like creating a Slack channel of customer wins and putting that in there, so you can start motivating towards that rather than we close a huge deal. Wow, let's all go out for dinner and celebrate. You should be celebrating when customers love your product.
That's awesome. Actually, I have to hop off, but I might email you, Alexa. So
yeah, let's do it.
All right. Thank you guys. Bye.
Thanks for asking that question, Kyle. If there's any other questions, feel free to share it in the comments or unmute yourself while people are thinking about that and giving them a chance. One question I'd love asking is around any final advice you have for companies around product-led sales. Like if you can give 1 or 2 pieces of advice around product-led sales. And I know you talked a lot in the presentation, as well as you were just talking a little bit about that mindset shift. But what would be the 1 or 2 pieces of advice you'd like to share to product-led companies or people who are moving to product-led growth motion?
It's a great question. The first would be experimentation. So a lot of people creating product-led sales, do your diligence. You're going to want to talk to other companies that did it, call up your friends at bigger PLG companies like Dropbox and Atlassian, some smaller startups, figure out how they do it. But it's not a copy and paste thing. You need to take the lessons and then experiment with your own organization. So there's no one size fits all solution between every product-led sales motion. Like I said, it's not a copy and paste thing like enterprise sales. So you're going to have to get into that experimental mindset of, okay, I know how others do it now, but let me see what's best for my business and continue to experiment with what the team looks like and what the workflow looks like and what the PQLs look like. That would be my number 1 piece of advice. My second piece of advice would be just keep learning from your users. Like your job is to just learn, soak up, become extremely empathetic to who your users are and focus more on getting feedback and learning versus closing deals, which is what I was just saying before. Like Dropbox is a great example. When they implemented the sales assist team, their sales assist team was really focused on feedback. And then ultimately that feedback led to changes in XYZ, which ultimately led to millions of more dollars. So don't be so focused on the near-term revenue or near-term close of a deal. Be focused on the future of your company and longer term, how to add value, because that will ultimately get you to that better place.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. And just one final call. If people have any questions, just once again, share in the chat. But like, if people had more questions after this, can you share the best way to reach out to you and or the team at Focus again, by email or even Twitter or LinkedIn, wherever you prefer.
Yeah,
and people wanted to find out more about Focus as well. Where can people see that?
Yeah, so focus.com. My Twitter is at Alexa_Grable, and you can follow me on LinkedIn. Reach out to me there. Also, I'll not put my email, but reach out. I'll answer Twitter DMs and LinkedIn DMs, I promise.
Awesome. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you sharing all this knowledge. We'll be sharing this out on YouTube, on newsletter, and people who are here, we'll share out the recording right after as well. Thank you, everyone.
Amazing. Thank you for having me, and thank you all for the questions. It was so great being here.
Take care, everyone. Have a good one.